We've got a great afternoon planned for you here, and we're going to start with Angela Anderson. She's the director of Marine Corps University Press. Marine Corps University Press publishes scholarly monographs and 4 journals. Ms. Anderson directs and manages acquisitions, editing, design, and production of contemporary and military history. She began working and publishing in 1992. She's also a graduate of George Washington Masters of Publishing program and has a BA in graphic arts from the University of Texas, Austin.
Thank you, John and Pooja, for including me in this conversation. Okay, so this afternoon, I'm very excited to be able to talk to all of you about open access publishing. It's obviously not a new topic. It's been around for a long time, but after recent events through several presidential administrations, it's definitely become a little bit more of an imperative, especially for government publishers. As John indicated, I work for Marine Corps University Press. I'm the director. And we are a publishing house that supports a professional military institution, which is just a little bit different from a traditional academic setting. We were created specifically by the encouragement of a board that was put together that noted the university needed a publishing house to support the research that was coming out of the university, but also to help bring research in. As a result, the press was created as a born open access publisher, and we published our first open access journals and monographs in 2010. I came on board in 2013, and my objectives were really clear. One of them was to professionalize the work that was being done, to align the press's processes with standards for ethical publishing, but also most importantly to become members of the Association of University Presses. We became introductory members in 2016 and regular members in 2020. The press is celebrating its 15th anniversary this year. So even though we are a fairly new press, we do represent a trend in the academic ecosystem where Born Digital is our only business model. So when we talk about the ethical imperative for federal government publishing, what we mean is that it's really still in its infancy for a lot of university presses. But within the federal government, most agencies and organizations have been operating using this model for some time. But the real question is, why are we distributing information like this? And most importantly, why should external publishers follow suit when possible? Why is it critical for the American public, the intellectual community, but also the world's population to have access to this research? To really address this problem as deeply as we can, we really need to talk a little bit more about what we mean by open access and how that applies to the groups that are going to be publishing research that is supported by federal dollars. So as I said, the concept of open access has been around for a very long time, and a large group of individuals decided to get together and discuss what open access really means and why it was important. And they talked a lot about what it meant, what type of content could be accessed, how it could be accessed, but also how they could protect that intellectual property in doing so. And this distinction is really important because open access isn't mean just freely throwing information and research out into the world, ignoring the author's efforts and time, the institutions that are driving this information, but really laying the foundation for the global community to access this information and participate in the conversation. And, since the early 2000s when open access was first being discussed, different concepts for OA models have been thrown around, and there are probably some conversations about what each one of these things mean, whether hybrid, green, bronze, gold, diamond, or platinum. But a lot of these models focus a great deal on financial support of the organization, how quickly the information is available, whether or not there are costs involved for either the author or the reader, or even the format of the information that's going to be provided. And each one of these models kind of typifies how that might happen. And with the exception of the diamond or platinum, those OA models can change depending on the publisher and their needs. This next slide has been around for quite some time, and while it can be just a tad confusing, I do think it shows pretty well how these different sections overlay in order to create the OA community. And on the right side, you'll see that that's where our cost factors are coming in, whether or not someone somewhere along the pipeline is going to have to pay or provide a subvention for the content itself. And then on the left-hand side of this model, we have more about the practices involved in the OA publishing process. And a lot of that talks about copyright, who retains the rights to that information, how it's licensed, but also the peer review and actual editing, design, and production processes. And so if you take some of those circles apart, you'll see a little bit where a lot of the presses that each of us deal with on a daily basis, where they kind of fall. So what does that mean when it comes to federally funded research? In 2013, President Obama really got behind this initiative and released a memorandum that talked about how important it was for federally funded information to be made publicly available. And as you can see by the text provided here, that's a snippet from the memorandum, it can be fairly ambiguous, especially when you look at the requirement that this is specific to federal agencies with more than $100 million in annual research funding. And you think about where you are within that spectrum and, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. And for me, that's where the ethics of this situation and the conversation really comes in, as to why that dollar value was assigned to it, and whether or not federal agencies still have a responsibility to provide that information regardless of where they fall in the revenue spectrum when it comes to the dollars spent. And then later on, we see that within that memorandum, they really focused on a little bit more specific information about what this mandate means. And a lot of it, you'll see within the first couple of bullets, really talks about the content itself. They wanted to make sure that this information was going to be readily available and archived for long-term use, that it was discoverable by the general public, and it was going to be easy to locate and access. A lot of their focus was on long-term stewardship of the research information, so that it wasn't just when new data comes out, it's out and flashed across our screens for a moment. There's actually long-term use for it, so it actually becomes an archival document for access. And the last couple of bullets is really the responsibility of the federal agency itself for notification and compliance, and ensuring that there's a plan in place to hold the agency and its researchers accountable to this mandate. In 2020, Biden renewed the government's commitment to this and really focused the lens a lot more on what open access meant and how it applied not just to federal government agencies, but to also the other publishers external to the government that are publishing this research. And that's where university presses really started to be involved in this conversation, because many of them are publishing within their journal programs or their long-form monograph programs. They are publishing research from authors who've received backing from either the federal government as part of their employment, or they're receiving grant money. And those projects are included within this mandate. So a lot of university presses are struggling to figure out how to make this happen within their own budget and revenue stream when they're not receiving federal subventions or subventions from their parent institution to support an open access process. And the biggest and most important component of this was the deadline for agencies to be compliant. Really shifted gears for a lot of publishers to figure out how to make this happen. And one of the ways they do this is through open access. And I'm going to approach my conversation a little bit more from our perspective. We're a university press within the federal government, so we have a little bit of a different take. Everything that we do is open access. So whenever people start conversations about open access and the very next word is revenue generation, I'm always a bit taken aback, but I have to remind myself that not all university presses were created using the same model, and that they don't have the parent institution support like we do to ensure that all of their content is open access. But this applies also to a lot of government agencies who are putting out a great deal of research, including organizations like USDA, NOAA, NASA, the National Archives, EPA, and even the larger DoD, for whom the Marine Corps is a part of. And it really applies to how we provide academic information, including scholarly monographs and journals, to the public using this model. And we do so by using the exact same processes that every other university press does for peer review, for copy editing, for design and production. We're simply able to do it in both digital and print formats in an open access format with zero barriers to public consumption. And we have always been open access, as I mentioned, and for us and our mission and our strategic planning, it's really about ensuring that the information that we're providing to the community offers an opportunity for everyone to see themselves in the information being put out, not only so that it encourages continued conversation, but also the potential for content generation in a way that's diverse and inclusive and equitable and responsible, considering that everything that we do is coming from federal taxpayer dollars. And why is open access publishing important? And a lot of university presses would say it was because it allows their programs to exist. And that is certainly true for us as well. But given that our funding comes from taxpayer dollars, it's important that we provide some transparency to our authors and to our readers as to why our program exists. It also offers free and fast access to scholarly debate and research data that wouldn't necessarily be possible in all communities, not just in the United States, but also around the world. It supports the academic ecosystem that we reside in, but also the intellectual health of our smaller organization, but then also all the way up through the Marine Corps, the Navy, the DoD, and hopefully the Congress and the administration as well. It ensures that research receives a great deal more visibility because it's going to be aggregated and discoverable on many more platforms than it would if it were behind a paywall. And it also encourages searchability and long-term archiving. It leads to greater recognition within the industry. And as I said, it's also a way to encourage the creation of additional content. And when it comes right down to it, broadening that conversation is going to support diversity, inclusion, and equity. Has become a really big topic, not just in the university press world, but also within the DoD to encourage populations to participate in these conversations. And I think the most important thing for us and my team is that there are no longer going to be barriers to knowledge, whether it's geography, demographics, income, or the society that you happen to live in. Open access publishing is really going to open those doors to a number of voices and encourage both the bringing in and the pushing out of research and data to a global community. I'm sure there are probably going to be questions, and I hope that the group will have some at the end of this session after Jennifer has her discussion. But I do encourage everyone to dig a little bit deeper into both of the OSTP memos that went out, but also look at some of the toolkits and associations that are available to help educate people about what open access is, and also provide some resources as to how they can participate in the open access conversation.
Jennifer. So Jennifer Regala, standing right next to me, is Director of Publications and Executive Editor at the American Urological Association, where she oversees scholarly publications program, which includes 3 peer-reviewed journals, the organization's newsletter and membership digital ecosystem, annual meeting publications, and continuing medical education products. Most recently, she launched JU Open Plus, a new gold open access journal. If you ever have a chance to visit her museum, you should do that. It's a great museum. I should say that she's also very involved with the Society for Scholarly Publishing and co-leads, or maybe leads, the DC committee. For those of you that are in DC, you should definitely join that. And I'm going to turn you over to Jennifer.
Well, I didn't know I'd be able to squeeze in a shameless plug for the SSPDC committee. So anyone who wants to join, please do. And just shoot me an email later on about that. First, I want to thank John and Pooja and your lovely team here at George Washington. I say it all the time. This is one of the best conferences out there, and how you guys pull this off every year, it's pretty remarkable. I also want to give one quick shout out to a urologist in the virtual audience, Dr. Granum Sant, one of my biggest partners in crime of scholarly publishing in the urological community. And that's a testament to you guys for getting, folks outside of the realm of our scholarly publishing community to pack this room. And I'm just so proud to be a part of this event. Thank you. So I did warn Pooja and John, I went slightly rogue and off script, just a little bit, but in a good way. You'll like it. And I am going to talk about open peer review because it's a really important part of what, has to be said here. But, I wrote that abstract to submit to you all quite a bit back. And, I was thinking very singularly as I submitted it. And I just really wanted to be a part of this day. But my thoughts around, what is important in terms of ethics and being open, transparent, accessible, getting our information out there. But at the same time, too, a lot of us do have challenges at the same time. The Journal of Urology, which I will talk about mainly today, is a subscription journal. But those subscription fees do pay for a lot of good works from our organization. So, there's a lot of ethically complicated conversations that we have around these things. So I'm not wearing pink today, but pink is my favorite color. I'm just saying what I want to talk about today is the cost of open, why it's important, how to think about it in different ways, and why it's really worth every penny and all of the effort that we put into making our content accessible and really inclusive for our communities. And so again, I explained that I'm going a little rogue. My kids always say YOLO, you only live once. I will promise though, I'll keep it real. I hope that we can have, a conversation after I'm done talking, and then just building on the great conversation that we've already had with Angela. And that's also a remarkable thing too, isn't it? I never knew Angela until this process, and now, have another colleague and friend and have learned so much from her. I'll tell you though, the thing that gets me is as you could be telling me that this is how we've always done it. Even if you're talking about tying a shoe, then I'm not going to believe you that tying a shoe is how we should do it. If you say this is how we've always done it, it's really important for us to think bigger and better and more inclusively. So the open peer review idea that I submitted for this conference, again, I will get to that conversation, but it got me thinking about what we're working on at the American Urological Association, making our content in the realm and scope of what we're able to do as open, transparent, engaging, and accessible as we can. And that really needs to get done at any and all levels. I'm talking about the author level. I'm talking about the patient level, the reader level, physicians who are not urologists, globally. How can we engage as many people and as openly as possible with our content? And how do we get people involved and excited about those processes? So I'll get into talking about some of those things today too. I'll also point out that open and transparent and accessible, it's the right thing to do. It is, but it's not always the cheapest. It's not always the easiest. It's not always the most convenient. So as I thought about my original abstract and about what this conference means to the community, that's where I got to growing my conversation a little bit. I'll explain our publications just really quickly. At the American Urological Association, we have 3 peer-reviewed journals, as John mentioned. Our flagship journal is the Journal of Urology. We also work on a CME product that is very interesting. It keeps physicians current on their credits, but it's also a really cool product because that's also a very accessible product. It's meant to cover urology in a way that's not esoteric, that any practicing urologist can learn and stay up to date on trends in the field. We also have a member newsletter that has grown since I started at the AUA. And then we have annual meeting products that we work on hard. And that's also super important too, because we have people coming to our annual meeting from all over the world. And then some people are not able, for whichever reason, to attend our meeting. So these products can then link folks in and still include them in the important things that we're doing there. And then we also work on our team on internal AUA messaging and making sure it's cohesive and tight across the organization. So again, just a little background. I started at the AUA in 2020, and the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Urology has been a tremendous leader. Both of us basically started out in 2020. There was very little editorial board engagement for any of our publications at that time. There would be one meeting a year for about an hour or two. And after that, there was, very little interaction within an editorial board and between our editorial boards. And that will be important as I move on. And this is a slide I have actually used. Maybe some of you in the room have seen it before. The thing that is really important to me to think about all of the time as we're thinking about accessibility and telling the story of scholarly research is I have this shelf of bound journals going back to 1917 in my office, and they're beautiful to look at, and you can pull any of them out. There's handwritten notes in them. I'm not sure who wrote the notes. They're, like a little bit of dust comes out. They smell really good, like that old book smell. They're really, really delicious. But in the olden days, and I'm old at this point, it used to be, okay, let's really quickly just meet all of our deadlines, and then we are going to toss all of this on the shelf, and we are never, ever going to think about it again. But that's not the world that we live in today. Our publications have evolved. Here's a little snapshot of what they look like now. All of these covers have been redesigned since 2020, but what's more important is what's inside of them has evolved as well. And I'll also point out too, John mentioned we do have a new gold open access journal, which was very important to our organization. And that launched in January of this year and has had tremendous support from our community and has also unlocked authors that we never have worked with ever in the past. I would say that a large majority of our authors who are publishing in here have not published in our other publications before, which just speaks again to the accessibility of open access and what authors really want. They want their content to be out there and immediately open to the world. So where are we now? We're supported at the AUA by excellent leaders. That's within our organization. I will tell you that when I started at the AUA, I had an internal executive team who said, we hired you for who you are and for what we think that you can do to bring people together, and we support you. And they've never wavered in that support. So then part of that vision then is, getting that editorial board engagement from our experts. It turns out they were thirsty for it all along. So how can we expand the size of the table? We all know Randy Townsend in this room. And again, I've mentioned this a million times at this point, but Randy Townsend once said to me, you need to expand the table and give more people a seat, but you got to think about the people who you don't even know belong to have a seat. You've got to think bigger than the circles of community that you have and that are around you. And then also creating an environment where innovation and inclusion are expected. So that's easier said than done, but you got to start somewhere. And I'm really fortunate to work with a group of people who have embraced this concept and supported it along the way. Again, another thing too is nothing's going to happen if you're not talking often within and beyond our editorial boards. And then the most special thing of all, something I'm really proud to see and be a part of, is that the editors of our 4 scholarly publications are very, very tightly bound on mission with one another. I've never seen a lack of ego like this in my life. Truly committed to the mission of the AUA and disseminating our content and being better than we've ever been before. So where we're going, one thing that we say all the time, DEI is not a box we're checking, and that we are going to be open, we're going to be transparent, that we're going to be meaningful, intentional, and that we are going to collaborate our efforts with the journals within our family of journals, but also the journals outside of our family of journals, but in the urological community. There's no room for competition, in my opinion, in scholarly publishing. We all are thinking about JIF. We're all thinking about, other, ways to measure journals. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing, and that's to improve, in this case, urological health. But you get the point. The journals that others are working on are trying to improve whatever it is in their field that they're studying. So open peer review. Okay, here's my slides about what I actually said I would talk about. And so this keeps me, legal, and John won't kick me out for next year, and Pooja. So thanks for loving me through it. But historically, the Journal of Urology had single anonymous peer review. So of course, the anonymization of our reviewers happened in every case, and our authors had no idea who was touching their papers. So I was talking with Ann Stone earlier today, and we were talking about, yes, double anonymous peer review. Totally support it. I do. I think it is really, if we could do it, we would. Let me tell you why we thought about it and we didn't do it. Honestly, going back to what I said earlier in the presentation, cost and time. We're like many other publishing editorial offices. We have a very small team, and we do a tremendous volume of work, especially as we're working to diversify revenue and look at open access. We've launched an entirely new journal without hiring any additional staff members. So to do double anonymous peer review correctly, that takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. So then we thought, okay, what's another way we can be as transparent as we're able to be within the means of what we have? So November 1, 2021, we're almost there at the 2-year mark. We decided to launch open peer review. Now, again, what does that mean? That means a lot of different things. I will define it per the AUA, and that is that we publish all peer review reports without question for all accepted Journal of Urology articles. We publish names only if the author is willing to sign off on it, but we do still publish the review even if the reviewer wishes to remain anonymous. And what has that looked like for us? I will tell you that in our 2 years of doing this, I can count on fewer than 2 hands. I think the number is 6, the number of reviewers who have declined because they're against open peer review. I can tell you that our decline rate is we're holding very strong. People are not declining invitations because of open peer review. There haven't been any negative effects. In fact, what we have seen is that our goals of transparency, inclusivity, and education have been very important. And we do know that too, that these journal peer review reports are used with journal clubs and in other functions to teach folks how to be good peer reviewers, how to understand the science, to see the evolution of how the paper progressed from submission to acceptance. So just giving, again, these slides will be shared later. I've given permission for them to be used as a resource, but just giving a quick glimpse at what this looks like. We really do, present the entire evolution of the peer review report. Usually they're around 4 full pages long, and you can see that all of the nuts and bolts of those reviews are included. So then moving along to thinking about what does open mean though, because I just didn't want to stop there, and I just felt like there just wasn't enough meat on the bones. Keep on talking about where we're thinking about open. Another thing is the Journal of Urology is very representative of the global urological community. It's seen as a flagship journal where important conversations happen. In the past, there wasn't as meaty of what I like to call front matter material. So we're talking editorials, something called a JU forum, special articles, anything that goes in what is, traditionally the front of a print journal, where important conversations about what's happening in the world can go. So what we've seen in this past 3 years is that the front matter of the Journal of Urology has become a spot where there can be really balanced conversations on important topics. This is an example here of important work that was done within the AUA. It was AUA funded and supported diversity and inclusion work through a task force that eventually ended up becoming a DEI work group. And we now have a chief diversity officer as a result of this work. But why this is important and why I'm proud to see this in the pages of the Journal of Urology is in the past, this would have been published, but published in not the AUA family of journals. And that, that's like a knife in the heart. You have this important work that's been supported by the AUA, but it doesn't end up in JU. So it's just really great to see this evolution of this conversation. Encouragement of open discussion continues here. This is in our November issue. This is a brand new JU forum talking about taking a stand, no conferences in anti-abortion states. I do want to point out that the urological workforce, I don't know if you can see in the top right because it's teeny tiny, but we're now standing strong at 11.6% of the workforce is female at this point. So you can imagine that these conversations are important, especially in that regard. Then we do some stuff that seems silly, but it's actually important to us, and it ends up, paying off in the end. We do have a conference every year, an AUA international meeting. It's just our regular annual meeting, like many of you out there who work at associations and societies have. We give out every year a fanny pack, and our secret sauce here is we hide that underneath our journal booth at the annual meeting. And we do that as a word of mouth thing, and folks come and find us and they have to ask for the fanny pack. And then that's our chance to pounce and make them part of our community. Talk to them, involve them in what we're doing, explain what's new with all of our publications. How can you be involved? How are you already involved? Oh my gosh, you had a bad experience with us. Tell us more. We don't want that to ever happen again. And then that builds this accessibility. And then the tangible outcomes that we've seen from that: pre-submission inquiries, more reviewers, more interest in editorial leadership. We have just seen this exponential explosion of folks who are really interested in what we're doing, and they feel like they can reach out to us, all because of that pink fanny pack. It's not pink every year, but we're never going to beat this one. And then another thing that we do too, to get everyone to buy in, how do you get everyone to buy into all of these changes and to believe in them and be a part of them? And that's where we have spent a tremendous amount of time on editorial board engagement. And, it used to be that we would send every month really boring peer review reports. And I'm sure you all have sent them. I'm sure you all have received them. And I'm sure you all just put them in you either filed them or you tossed them into your digital trash can. So what we started to do is we have a newsletter just like this one for all of our publications, and we send these out to the editorial board, and you just never know what you're going to see inside of here. There might be a Cyndi Lauper picture. We have, different things that we're doing to hook people in. And then we also sprinkle all of the boring statistics in and out of the different feature things that we have to get people to read. We also really work on meeting all year long. I mean, I think we can all agree, and look, this conference is a perfect example of it, that the pandemic did teach us that things can be more accessible. We can have more meetings where more people can participate, and we don't have to wait for once a year to be in person to get things done. So these are just some examples of meetings that we have throughout the year, and that allows everyone the chance to get to know one another and get on the same page. And if there's differing opinions, not everyone always agrees, and people have really good points on all sides of every issue. That's a way for us all to work together behind the scenes and then come out, with a unified message for the community. We also have early career editors we work with. This was something that had never been done until 2021. We're coming up to the end of their first term, and we have 6 early career editors. They're phenomenal. They serve in major topic areas, and they are legitimate big contributors to our editorial board for the Journal of Urology. So they train with our senior editors, and they are really taking part in the editorial process, doing reviews. They go to every single meeting, and many of them at the end of this 2-year term are going to roll on to the board in more what we consider to be more senior positions. But I think the thing that, it wasn't unexpected, but, it was a brand new program to us. The biggest thing I think that came out of this is the mentorship opportunities. And I think that we have friends of our journals for life due to this program. Also on our Journal of Urology editorial board, we have a smaller group within it called the Health, Equity, and Diversity Table. We call it the HEAD table. All ed board members are invited and included. And also you are able to, we actually invite anybody in urology to participate in this group. This group co-writes editorials and also serves as a layer of review for health, equity, and DEI related papers. And what they've ended up doing is now inviting a larger cohort of specifically health, equity, DEI focused reviewers who can review papers from that lens. And we've have a special category and editorial manager and all for these reviewers. And then with submitters, we do ask if a paper is related to DEI, health equity, and then we track those acceptance rates separately. And we also make sure that those papers are appropriately reviewed with experts in that area. So long-term goals of our health, equity, and diversity table: study those open peer-reviewed data. Who's choosing to have their name published? I will tell you that largely, interestingly, the folks that people were most worried about were early career researchers. And would there be any kind of retaliation or retribution for their open reviews. And it turns out those are the folks much more likely to publish their names than a person considered more senior in their career. And then also we are looking at reporting out on other peer review data. We do train our the head table, our editorial board, and our editorial office staff in these areas. And then we rely on experts in urology and beyond. I'll get to that in just one second to train all of us. We use social media. It's getting a little dicey these days, and I refuse to call it X. Twitter used to be a great place for us. Not so great anymore. So it's, eroded a bit, but we're trying to find our communities where they are. So whether that's Threads, whether that's Blue Sky, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, lots of people are migrating over to LinkedIn. We're looking for them and looking to engage them. We're also thinking about one thing that this sounds ridiculous, but I know it's a struggle that journals grapple with because I've worked on many now that I am getting on the senior leg of my career here. What is a JU paper? We're really thinking about that because there's a lot of preconceptions. There's a lot of, these stereotypical ideas, and we're trying to dispel that. We're trying to make it really clear. What is a JU paper? What will we take? Well, we will take anything that as it relates to urology, and that is excellent, innovative science. And if it's not a JU paper, but it's good, sound science, we do have a room in our family of publications. And then we are looking to expand the sections of our table of contents and perhaps enlist an associate editor for a DEI and health disparities section of the journal. A spaceship idea that we have, and we're still figuring out the particulars, but I can tell you that I meet often with my counterparts who work at, our competition, and we call it, we always say collaboration is greater than competition. The idea is to share resources across all of urology, especially peer review. There's only so many experts in any field, and wherever we can share resources rather than compete, that's a good thing. We're also looking beyond urology. There's familiar faces here. I wish Paige were in the room right now. But one thing that we do is we started it with the Journal of Urology, but we've extended the invitations to our other editorial boards, our publications committee, and actually our quote competition, our other journals in the field of urology. We've started inviting those editorial office members because, again, there's no room for competition. But we have Journal of Urology editorial board training. I don't have John's picture on here, but John also addressed our editorial board, and we're looking for DEI success stories and what works, what doesn't, and looking beyond the field of urology. And if anyone would ever be so kind as to address our group, we'd love to have you. You are most welcome. I did just wrangle Ann Stone as a future contributor. One of our very first speakers, though, who presented to the Journal of Urology editorial board, I actually met her through this process here for GW ethics. So that's another side plug, shout out. Pay attention to who's around you, make friends, meet new people today, find people today, because it might not be clear right that very second as you're drinking coffee and eating that delicious, whatever that vegetarian sandwich was. Oh my gosh, I need that again. So as you're doing those things, think about who you're sitting next to and how you can collaborate with them in the future. I promise you it's worth it. I presented here last year with Adriana Borgia. And then she went to SSP. John keeps talking about SSP, can't love it enough. But she won Best Poster there for her work on building diversity with an open editorial board at Microbiology Spectrum. So she came and presented this concept to the Journal of Urology editorial board. So at that time, my editor-in-chief was actually sitting physically in my office with me because he had been there for a meeting. As soon as we hung up that phone and we're done with that meeting, he's like, okay, Jennifer, you're doing this. They're like, this is it. We are doing an open call. We did our first open call last year. We had candidates. We had no idea. We never would have thought about them. We never would have considered them. So many amazing people. And we ended up filling roles with very qualified candidates who would not have been considered because they just were not within our sphere at that time. The folks who were not accepted, we've built relationships with. They are now reviewing for us. They're writing articles for our newsletter. It's been fantastic. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, but you know what? It's so worth it. It has been such a benefit to our organization. And then we are going to be opening our call for editors this fall for every single one of our journals. And so everyone can see all of our openings, everything we have available, and apply for roles accordingly. So what's on the horizon? Lighting our table of contents on fire. I'm going to talk really quickly because I'm almost done here, but figuring out ways to make our content even more accessible. We're going to use AI to work smarter, not harder. This is a big passion of mine. We're going to be doing patient summaries written by AI with a medical company that we work with very closely. We're going to use our AUA News platform. That's our newsletter. We use that to extend and promote and make openly accessible content in bundled curations that make sense for people to download. And why do we do all of this? Because the diversity of voices and continued accessibility and reach of content is important. And we're just taking on the elephant one bite at a time. Get the buy-in of your editorial boards. I always like to know, what should I do? Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to reach out to people that you know who are doing things well. Reach out to someone like an Adriana. Poor Adriana, I know you're watching virtually. Sorry if people start emailing you. I identify opportunities that are doable to start. And just remember, your work will never be done. That actually feels really good because your work will never be done, you're succeeding every small win that you can get. And then even the times you're defeated, it still adds up to something substantial. And again, I'm going to just have to slide through these because I'm about to get the hook off the stage, but I'll say that we use our AUA newsletter, which has now become a large digital ecosystem with events and videos and all kinds of accessible opportunities, again, to make our journal content accessible in new and interesting ways. And again, we are also promoting our idea of the voice of urology, your good, sound science, your important opinions, etc. They belong here and they belong with us. They belong in this family as you see it presented. Also extending our community globally. We take this show on the road. We are, working on making ourselves accessible and visible and relatable and recognizable across the world. And this is my dog, Scotty, and that's meant to soften the blow of any questions that might come my way.
I need to plug in the camera, but do we have questions from the audience? I have a question. Can I ask a question? Can you talk about your process for open peer review? How does the process work and everything?
So the process works. We make it clear in editorial manager. You do sign off as a reviewer that all peer reviews are going to be published. But then the author has the opportunity to say yes or no to having their name published as part of that peer review report. Then we compile the reports from start to finish. They tell the whole peer review journey, if you will, including editorial comments as well. And we do not put, like, for instance, we don't put John Warren's name right next to his review. We just say all of these folks contributed to this. And then we also mention if there were 1, 2, or 3 anonymous reviewers, just to indicate how many people were involved with the process. Then the peer review reports, Heather Good is an amazing colleague of mine, and she works on our team and she helps greatly with this effort. We do post each one of these peer review reports online. We use the Adapon platform and they publish alongside the actual article itself. And all of those peer review reports appear ahead of the paywall.
Any questions for Angela or Jennifer? Angela's still online.
So John, for interim questions, when you turn on the speaker.
Yeah,
How do
I got.
do I just mute it?
Don't do anything. Okay. Annie has a question, Edgar.
So once again, any questions from our in-person audience, please come see me here with my tiny microphone so that all of our online
Annie has
attendees
a
can
question.
also participate. And just say who you are and where you're from.
Okay. Hi, I'm Edgar Garcia from Universidad Veracruzana in Mexico. I have a question for Angela and Jennifer. I'm here too much in another forums in Europe and even in South America about open science. Do you have some pressure of your editorial board about open the data on campaign the authors to open science? Like I hear the open science like at an upper stage of the open access. So have you feel some pressure of your editorial board about it or no?
Angela, do you want to go or me? Do I need to turn something up? Okay, I'll go really quickly and say we do it, that's part of what we require of authors, but you don't have to. We require that the data are provided upon request. We haven't had a problem thus far, but we do there, and there are challenges in some cases because, in my case, we're talking about patient data. So there are challenges, knock on wood. To date, we've been all right operating in that regard. But I do know that that's a huge conversation across every publishing conference I go to here in the United States, like how to mandate that. And then also, again, our editorial offices are so small. There's only 8 of us. So to manage all of that and, require it and ingest it, we just aren't able to do that. So that's why we say, available upon request. And again, that hasn't at least been a challenge for us.
So, Angela, did you want to answer that too?
Sure. We're really careful about being fully transparent with our authors, our peer reviewers, our editorial board. Everything on our website is very transparent about our open access publishing process. We also aggregate and index all of our content on multiple platforms, including Science Open and several UK-based indexers. The UK is much farther ahead in their open access movement than the United States is, and that's good, but it's also a real challenge because American publishers who are trying to publish research data in the UK have to meet certain mandates. So it is definitely getting really complicated for publishers who are not fully open or are partially open. And it's something that the UK is continuing to struggle with as well because their mandates are coming due here fairly soon as well. So if you want to sell any book or journal content in the UK, you have to meet certain open access guidelines. So it's definitely going to become a much more invigorated conversation as publishers put information out there.
Go ahead.
Hey, Jennifer. Thank you for the great presentation. I have a question more about any any changes you've seen in publication metrics since switching to this model. I was actually in a session, it was either last week or the week before, more of the double-blinded, and they talked about how bias was removed and publications significantly increased. I'm wondering, if you can speak at all to if you've seen any sort of trends in this movement of bias being removed and publication numbers altering.
So that's on our list to tackle of figuring that out. That's a project within our the head table, and we're going to be looking at all of those metrics. The one that we've studied most closely, though, is we've just wanted to make sure we're not alienating our important peer reviewer pool. And again, we've had great satisfaction there, and we have pooled the folks who sign their names. And all of them have been really proud to be a part of that movement. And then also they've been using those peer review reports for their own recognition, which is, of course, always a struggle in our world, recognizing peer reviewers. So they're able to use that on their CVs. They're able to use that in their packages for promotions, et cetera. So that's been another thing that we've kept an eye on, but that's next. And maybe I'll submit an abstract on that next year for John or report back.
Angela?
Hey, yeah, we actually collect a good bit of data. I have been participating with the Open Access Committee through the AU presses, and that's a significant driving force with some of their data metrics and collections, is seeing how open access content might be driving more activity on their sites, not just to the open access content, but also to the content that is still behind a paywall, and vice versa. Does one drive sales? Does one sale drive OA access? So it's something we're still trying to figure out how to actually use quantifiable and qualifiable data to measure those. But obviously you've got your user statistics, your site clicks, your page throughs, your downloads, all of those things to measure just how much your open access content is driving activity on your website.
Hi, my name is Annie. I'm a graduate of the GW Publishing program, and I actually had a question for Angela. You talked about being open and transparent with your archiving process, and I think that's the first time we've talked about archiving in this conference at all. So I'd like to hear more about that.
Sure. The archiving side is actually part of the mandates pushed down by the OSTP memo to ensure the long-term sustainability of the data. But we also use a variety of indexers and aggregators to kind of spread our data across multiple platforms to help us with the archiving process, to ensure that should something happen on our website, they can still access the content on Project Muse or Scopus or Elsevier or Science Open. So it's really spreading that load across multiple platforms, but it also helps reduce some of our time, effort, and resources. Our entire press is 7 people. So we need to find ways to have other organizations help us with that. So long-term archiving of this data is definitely one of those ways where we can rely on external organizations to help us with that.
And I'll just say that I have no words of wisdom on this, but ironically, I was on a NASIG working group representing, a small publisher's point of view on how to handle archiving. I think that was an excellent question and something all of us should be thinking about. But how to do it, I mean, it's kind of on the bottom of the list at the end of the day, when you have all of, you have deadlines first, then all of this other work I'm talking about, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a really important consideration. It's boring. It's not sexy, but it's important. So, again, just acknowledging the question and saying I have no answer. So
2 organizations that are very involved with this is Clocks, and I think the other one is called Locks. Clocks and Locks, if I don't have those wrong. More questions?
Yes, hi. So this is Pooja from In the Room. A couple of things coming from the online trend. Both are a bit fangirl, so they're worth sharing. This is from Adriana Borgia. It says, not a question, but a thank you to Jennifer for the shout out. It was so much fun meeting with her editors, and she highly recommends it to anyone interested in sharing their knowledge and experience. And that's something, if you didn't already get from Jennifer's presentation, is the value of connecting with people who you don't realize quite yet how much you have in common. And that's something John and I try to pair with a lot of the pairings and the groupings in this conference. A question that did come in here is, from a publishing attendee. Angela and Jennifer are two of my favorite people in the industry. Angela, can you please describe some of the ongoing training and education that you provide to your authors about open access and how you responded to anybody that may not necessarily want their content published as OA?
Sure. Early on, it was a really challenging subject to bring up to authors because so many of the people who had been publishing in the military history world, contemporary topics, were used to dealing with publishers who offered royalties or authors were paid a fee to submit their work if it was accepted. And so that was a conversation that we had to have early on simply because OA publishing within the university press world was still kind of a unicorn. But we have, as we have gotten more notoriety online, social media, we use every single platform we can to ensure that authors come into every single stage of this process, knowing full well that we are an open access publisher. We do not generate revenue, not just because I don't want to have to mess with the fiscal side of that, but we just simply can't. Legally, we are not allowed to generate revenue from our works because taxpayer dollars have already paid for it. So it would be like double taxation. So we just try to ensure that we are, as clear as possible in our submission guidelines, in our author agreements, in our every single level of communication that we put out there, that authors are aware of it. And those conversations are happening a lot more rarely than they used to.
Anyone?
This is Ann Stone, also big fan of Jen's. I had a question to you about when you say a lot of work in terms of getting that open editorial board, and then also talking about double anonymized peer review being way too much work. How would you quantify like the work stream value of doing the editorial versus the peer review approach to, making things more inclusive?
So I'll start with the open call for editors. So what that will look like for us this year, again, we have 4 editorial boards. We're creating some new positions. We have a number of openings. So it's getting all of those job descriptions right and tight. It's advertising those and marketing them. And we have people all over the place in career. So we have people we're trying to find on social media. We're trying to email. We're trying to put those openings on our website and make them accessible. Then when we get all of the letters of interest and CVs, and then we're going through all of them, a team of us. So it's me in the editorial office and our editors. And then you have all of the editors talking with one another because, someone who applied for JU might not be a perfect fit right at that time, but there might be an opening over here on urology practice that makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of conversations that are happening. Then interviews come from this, et cetera. Then the people, what will happen is the folks who aren't accepted, we still want them to be part of our family. They're still valuable. There's still definitely a way to pull them into the fold. So I haven't thought about the answer to to quantify the number of hours, but it's just a lot of thinking. It's a lot of efforts. It's a lot of processes. It's worth it though. The pink juice, as I said at the beginning, is worth that squeeze because again, we're finding people we just no one would have ever thought of, and not from a malicious way, just we didn't have the time to do it. So we just picked people we knew who would show up and do a great job, which is still true, but not fair. And as far as the double anonymous peer review, when we made this decision, it was at a time when I was newer to the organization. We needed to do something and it was important to do so, but we had really limited resources then because we were also modernizing our systems. We just had a lot of different things that we needed to do. Just to give an example, we didn't have a production tracking system, et cetera. I can go down a list of things that we needed to work on. So that was a way that it was going to be more work than single anonymous peer review, but not as much as work as double anonymous peer review. So will that be revisited? We talk about it all the time. We talk about, how will this evolve and, how will we be better and continue to be as transparent as we can be. Also within our 8-person staff. And also we need to archive all of our stuff. And now I'm like gonna be up all night thinking about this archiving. That was the best question. Everyone archive your stuff except for I haven't.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Right. Okay, wonderful. So thank you, Angela, and thank you, Jennifer, for a great presentation. We have another one coming up. So I believe Jennifer was the only one who presented last year and this year, if I'm not mistaken. I invite all of you to submit a presentation proposal for next year. It's not open yet, but look for it like in March or April. But also, please submit an article to our Journal of Ethics in Publishing.